I would like to begin today by saying that we have a right to free speech in this country. And because we have a right to free speech, that means that you are entitled to your opinion. But it also means that I am entitled to my opinion. However, just because somebody holds an opinion doesn't necessarily mean that that opinion is valuable. In order for an opinion to be valuable, it has to be valuable to other people. And in order to determine whether an opinion is valuable to other people, it must be disseminated. Once an idea leaves your head, it is no longer immune from the scrutiny of other people's right to an opinion about your opinion. So in saying that, I would like for you to scrutinize my opinion today in the comment section down below. And if you found this video valuable, then send it to people who need to see it.
Yeah, obviously no sponsorship on today's video because I think it's gross to benefit from even the discussion of this topic. But what I will say is that I did leave the monetization controls native to YouTube on because we all know that if you're not pulling in something to the platform, then basically your video goes nowhere. And let's be honest, this video is getting demonetized anyway, just because it's not going to fit the narrative that they want to push.
Today we're going to an unlikely place for source material, which is the New York Times. This may be a shocker to some of you out there, but I speak for at least half the country, quite possibly more than half the country, in saying that the New York Times is quite simply not considered a reputable source these days. However, I do believe that there is an element there, at least, that either gets it or has begun to get it, and the subliminal messaging is starting to bleed through. We're talking about the tragedy that occurred this past week at Michigan State University, where a deranged criminal killed, despite all gun control efforts, including the gun-free zone that is the state university. And of course, before the bodies are even in the ground, we have politicians exploiting the situation for political favor, which I find absolutely disgusting, by the way. Simultaneously, we have an element of the student body that is being suppressed for what it seems actually having their brain switched on. You guys saw this, right? Yeah, that was painted over rather rapidly before anybody could take too many pictures of it. Referring back to the article, when queried about why institutions of higher learning like colleges and universities haven't adopted the stricter security measures that we see are becoming more prevalent at the K through 12 level, this individual, who happens to be a College of Criminal Justice professor, said, what we do and what is acceptable at the K through 12 level is not necessarily acceptable when you get to the college level. And continuing, frankly, anybody can drift onto a college campus and do what happened the other day. When you have a campus that is the size of a city, it's pretty difficult to control flow of anything in and out of that place. Citing the vice president of Brown University, saying it's a balancing act. You don't want your colleges to appear like prisons or Fort Knox. At the same time, we need to keep these spaces safe. Of course, you could have all those security countermeasures, but if you go to the police directly, they say that they already have a problem where they continuously remove rocks and other objects from in front of those doors, keeping various people from the streets flowing into and out of those buildings. Police chiefs recognize it is almost impossible to control access to university campuses. There are simply too many entrances and buildings. Many land-grant universities, like Michigan State, are the size of small cities. Even with smaller colleges, it is impossible to wall off an entire campus. You can't detect everyone who brings a firearm onto a college campus. The article does quote several students, and one of which says that they don't carry a firearm, but they know several people that do, and it talks about the immense responsibility that they undertake. I can say that when I was in school, I did carry a firearm, and I'm not really sure what the status of Michigan State University is, but I know that my campus is predominantly a walking campus, and there would be many times a week I would be walking home, particularly to the off-campus housing options that are out there in relatively unlit areas by myself. What we want is this to be an open place where we can welcome thought and diversity and challenge ourselves. But there's another side of humanity that's dark and wants to do evil. We come to the crux of the situation. I think that if you really want to understand this issue, you actually need to move out of the human element for a second. And I challenge all of you to go read Jane Goodall's work on chimpanzees, our next closest relative that split off 6 to 7 million years ago. Chimpanzees are highly developed in their social structures, many of which mimic humans, and they are also one of the only species on the planet that conducts war. Do you think it's a coincidence that our most closely related relative behaves in this manner? It is unfortunately human nature to brutalize ourselves. You need look no further than the world today. Just look at the news or human history. It's set a pretty prolific precedent that this is one of the things that we do. Many of you watching this video today live in a society that is untouched by war, which I'm supremely grateful for. But we have to answer the question, how did we get that? And the answer is by winning those wars. People only obey the law when there are two conditions that are met simultaneously. The first one is that they are in a relative state of homeostasis. The second is that they currently value what it is that living under the law provides for them. So if we take a completely unrelated case as a form of satire, let's say you're in your backyard chopping some wood, you miss and you cut two of your toes off. You're going to get in your car and you aren't going to drive the speed limit. You are going to speed to the nearest ER because not only are you no longer in homeostasis, but you're no longer really concerning yourself with the ramifications of speeding down the road. You're more concerned about bleeding to death or possibly passing out before you get to the ER. In the extreme case, when we apply that same logic across, if you have somebody that has decided that what they desire to do more than anything else is to take human life, as reprehensible as that is, they're not really too concerned about what is written on a sign that is tied to some words that are written on a piece of paper somewhere. They've made up their mind. It is not my intent with today's video to try to convince anybody anywhere that they should carry around a lethal weapon with them everywhere they go. In fact, I would say that if you are one of those people that does not feel comfortable doing that, then you are most certainly in the population of people that should not be doing that. However, what I would say to you is that there are people around you, and there is a growing community of people that are. And they should have the option, and it is in your best interest that they have the option to defend themselves and those around them, because it is very clear that the government not only does not have the resources to be able to provide for your safety, but it is quite simply not their job. Almost every single time something like this happens, you hear somebody saying, "We've got enough guns. We don't need any more guns. There are more guns than people." That may be true. But because of the way we've operated these institutions, none of those guns that are in the right hands were there.